Atalante, in the middle of her yoga routine, was interrupted by Dowd. She was visibly surprised, especially after peeking inside the sack he had handed her. She asked if it was what she thought it was, and Dowd confirmed that it was a relic, though he wasn't sure what she was thinking. After a moment of silence, Atalante tied her hair back and finally asked if he had gone to the interdimensional realm. Dowd confirmed this, waving the black card she had given him as proof. Atalante admitted she hadn't expected him to use it so quickly and then pointed out his disheveled hair, which looked like it had been styled by a mad scientist. Dowd explained that he had stopped by Dean Percy's place and handed over 2 ectoplasm blobs. Percy had been so surprised that she fired lightning magic at him. He added that they were in the process of delivering the ectoplasm obtained from the interdimensional realm, and joked that Percy, despite being a witch, was quite the scaredy cat. He then asked Atalante if this satisfied her, referring to her earlier promise of another gift if he satisfied her. Atalante responded that it wasn't about being satisfied. Even if he hadn't given the relic to her and taken it to the Mage Tower instead, she would have bought it with a pile of gems. Ectoplasm and a thought body were incredibly rare and valuable. A thought body was said to contain the consciousness of great men who achieved extraordinary feats, while ectoplasm was an ultra-rare material, barely obtainable in units of 30 to 50 grams per year. Its utility was nearly universal. Depending on the processing method, it could be made harder than diamonds or transformed into explosive weapons with power comparable to tactical arms. Dowd had just handed over 2 blobs of it, weighing in kilograms, which naturally caused Percy to have a seizure. Atalante acknowledged that a promise was a promise and agreed to give him a gift. Dowd, however, asked if he could make a request instead. He wanted her to bestow the thought body onto an item. Atalante raised an eyebrow, asking if he was focusing more on the future rather than the present. Dowd confirmed this, explaining that while processing the thought body directly into equipment would produce an item with outstanding performance, bestowing it onto an existing item will allow the consciousness within to slowly awaken, accumulating effects far beyond superior equipment. He had chosen the latter. Atalante sighed deeply and admitted she had been thinking about it for a while. She asked why he was going to such lengths. Dowd responded with a question, but Atalante clarified that he had already single-handedly subdued Hazmed and even taken down a hero candidate in one blow. She knew about Hazmed, and while Dowd acknowledged that he wasn't weak by any means, even if his strength came from cheat skills like desperation and Tristan's swordsmanship, he still felt the need to grow stronger. Atalante observed that it seemed like he was being chased by something. Dowd thought to himself that her observation was quite accurate. If he didn't prepare this much, he would die. The enemies in the main scenario, especially the chapter bosses connected to the devils, weren't ordinary foes. They were disasters. Monsters in human form, directly linked to beings capable of destroying the world. Dowd was already deeply involved with the main character and the final boss, the core axis of the story. With the main scenario progressing faster than expected, he was indeed in a race against time. Chapter 1 was no exception, and beyond that, there were the Chapter 2 boss, the Boy King of the Ruined Kingdom, and the Chapter 3 boss, the Apostle of the Reversed Sea. While Dowd had growth-type equipment ready for those battles, his current condition was precarious. If anything, it was more dangerous now, before the growth curve. Quietly, Dowd admitted that he might even die soon. He had to do everything to even reach the Chapter 1 boss fight, and in case of emergency, he might have to resort to drastic measures. Atalante gave him a strange look before shrugging it off. Dowd then asked Atalante a question. Why did she favor him so much? He pointed out that she must have many questions for him. How he knew the location of the interdimensional realm, how he knew about psychic entities, how he won against Elia, and how he stopped the monsters. He acknowledged that he knew things no normal student would ever have knowledge of, and as a freshman, he felt like the academy had begun revolving around him recently. He admitted it might sound like an exaggeration, but he truly felt that his studies and daily life had all been influenced by her, the Chancellor. He wondered what she was going to ask him to do to show him this much favor. Atalante responded by chiding him for his tone, but acknowledged that he had noticed her special treatment. She then quipped that perhaps it was simply because he was cute. Dowd scratched his head in exasperation, thinking to himself that he wasn't telling her anything, so why would she? Still, she had agreed to help him grant an item with a psychic entity. If he raised the synchronization rate, the psychic entity would awaken, and nurturing it would prove incredibly helpful from Chapter 2 onwards. Dowd's thoughts were consumed by the main quest, Chapter 1, Purifier, which required him to successfully resolve the events in Twilight Iris. The timer showed D0, and the reward promised branch benefits from the main scenario. He knew he had to finish the quest first as he navigated the bustling crowd, searching for Elnor. Elnor spotted him first and approached, her presence commanding yet oddly gentle. She greeted him saying, "You're here, Dowd," as she moved closer. Dowd, slightly flustered, asked if he had made her wait. Elnor replied, saying she has not waited too long, just about 6 hours. Elnor looked stunning in a flowing sky-red dress that accentuated her smooth thighs, paired with elegant heels. A delicate necklace collar and earrings complemented her light makeup, enhancing her natural beauty. She looked completely different from the freshman reception ceremony. Dowd was stunned, realizing she had been there since before sunrise. Elnor explained that it was her first time coming to a place like this in a while, so she had found a spot nearby to get ready. Dowd couldn't help but think to himself that she was way too thorough. Elnor then asked Dowd if it was his first time outside the school while looking into his eyes. Dowd blushed slightly and admitted it was. Elnor noticed his avoidance of eye contact and teased him, asking why he wouldn't look her in the eye. Dowd, internally lamenting his lack of experience with the opposite sex, felt a pang of sadness. He thought to himself that he had never had such an experience in his life, let alone dating. Dowd Campbell didn't even have friends of the opposite sex. Elnor smiled softly and took his hand, leading him toward the long line for Twilight Iris. Dowd stared at her, wide-eyed, and asked if she had just smiled. It was a light, shy smile, something he had never seen before. In the main story, Elnor always seemed to be in constant suffering. The Grey Devil's energy bubbling within her, her rivalry with Elijah, and the pressure of navigating Tristan's family politics had chipped away at her mental state. She always wore a hardened, robotic expression. For all the time Dowd had spent grinding in the world of Sarah, he had never once seen her smile in front of others. He wondered to himself what this look she had on right now meant, this feeling of vulnerability. It was as if she was truly at ease with him. But as soon as he mentioned it, her expression reverted to its usual impassive state. Elnor asked if she had been smiling, and Dowd hesitantly replied that he thought she had. Elnor pressed him, asking if he was sure, and Dowd questioned why she was asking him that. Elnor admitted that she had never smiled before, so she didn't really know what it felt like. She tries to smile again, but it seems sloppy. Dowd thought to himself that it was still a bit far from being natural. As the full moon festival was in full swing, the streets were packed. People complained about the long line, asking why it wasn't getting any shorter. Dowd and Elnor arrived at Twilight Iris, still holding hands. Dowd remarked that the eyes of Twilight was just as crowded as he thought it would be and wondered if they would even be able to get inside. A familiar face was working at the entrance. Dowd called out to Talion, asking what he was doing there. Talion greeted him warmly, saying he was honored that Dowd remembered him and explaining that he was working as a part-timer because his family practiced laissez-faire. Dowd felt a bit queasy seeing Talion say that with a wistful smile. He thought to himself that even he, from a small barony, received allowances for living expenses, but the eldest son of a viscount had none. It seemed a bit too much. Talion looked perplexed as he watched Dowd and Elnor, who was practically clinging to his arm. He asked Dowd what his relationship with the president was for them to come here together. Dowd could feel Talion's questioning gaze. At first, they had just held hands, but Elnor had gradually moved closer, resulting in their current pose. Even if he wanted to push her away, his minuscule strength made it impossible. Dowd stammered, "Our relationship will..." He felt Elnor twist his arm. It felt like it was about to be ripped off, but his thoughts were interrupted as he realized, wait, why am I with the president anyway? Isn't this a date? In the novel, he doesn't think this because he's already asked her out. Well, to be his bodyguard. And if things go as he planned, she can let her steam off, hehe. Elnor addressed Talion with authority, asking if they could enter by the authority of the student council president. Talion humbly bowed his head and said, "Of course you can." Dowd thought to himself that Talion had been like this originally. Before his fall into darkness, he remembered him being a diligent and sincere A student. Dowd questioned why Talion was using honorifics. Talion explained that he would call Dowd Youngnim, because Dowd was older than him. Dowd thought to himself that Talion wasn't wrong. In Elfante, being in the same class didn't equate to similar ages. The problem was, Dowd asked how Talion knew that. Talion replied that Marquis Riverback often talked about Dowd and was very interested in him. Talion's reply made Dowd frown. He thought to himself that Marquis Riverback was a snake. Perhaps he only approached Dowd because he was close with Elijah and Elnor. But Marquis Riverback wouldn't put so much care and attention on Dowd if he were simply using him as a bridgehead to the two women. Talion smiled cheerfully and said, "Anyways, welcome to the Twilight Iris. Please enjoy your stay." Dowd faced Talion, his thoughts racing. He realized that the main scenario had changed since Elnor and Elijah's favorability increased. It was now clear that the effect had reached this far. Marquis Riverback's interest had shifted from Elijah to Dowd. The story, so that meant the chance of him having a good time in this restaurant today was practically zero. Dowd asked Talion if he was wearing a necklace or something. Talion looked startled and fidgeted with his neck. It was a necklace with an emblem engraved in the middle, Evil Ruler, to exercise command over Talion, an item Dowd recognized. Talion explained that it was given to him by the Foundation of Purity at the place Marquis Riverback was running. Dowd thought to himself that, as expected, since the scenario had gotten twisted like his arm, he should also set a trap card of his own. He instructed Talion not to wear the necklace today, and to make sure other part-timers didn't wear it either. Talion agreed, though still bewildered. Dowd patted his shoulder and entered the restaurant with Elnor. Dowd thought to himself that with this alone, he had taken a considerable advantage against Marquis Riverback. Inside, a smiling Marquis Riverback greeted them, saying, "Ah, Mr. Dowd Campbell, welcome. And Princess Tristan." Dowd's thoughts hardened as he prepared himself. "Bring it on, you bastard. This is just the beginning."